Hello and welcome to the channel, Gang and Peanut, two peas in a pod. Today I'm sowing what I consider to be one of the most rewarding plants that I will grow throughout the whole year. And what it is, it's turning some of these into one of these. Oh, sweet corn. Now with sweet corn, there are different varieties you can get. And I like to choose one of the sweet or super sweet varieties. And the one I'm using today is called Early Extra Sweet. And I'll just show you. And it's an F1 variety. So, I'm going to show you how I sow these and get them ready to eventually go out and give me some of that wonderful sweet corn that I absolutely love. So, this is what I do. The very first thing, tip number one, is to pick the right variety. Pick something that says sweet or super sweet or extra sweet. In my experience, they've got a much better flavour. Now you can get a variety where you will produce a cob that's yellow. There are varieties that will produce cobs that are more of a red. And you can get varieties that are multicoloured. Personally, I like the yellow cobs. They're more traditional. That's just what I like, so this is what I go for. And this is one that I grew last year, and it was frozen in the freezer, and I had some of this last night for my dinner, and it still tastes absolutely delicious. Just nearly as good as it would have the moment I picked it. But hey, pick the right variety, ensure it says sweet in the title. That's my advice. So, you've picked the variety that you think's the right one for you. Now what we need to do is we need to get these little seeds and we need to sow them. And what I like to do is I like to pre-chit these little seeds. You don't have to do that, because remember, what I do is not necessarily the right way. It's certainly not the only way. It's just my way, and that's what I'm sharing today. So I'll show you what I do and how I pre-chit my little sweet corn seeds. So, the way I pre-chit my seeds for sweet corn, or kernels I think is the right name for them, is I take one of these, just a food container. You don't need to use one of these, you can use something similar, a seed tray. I pop some compost in, just general purpose compost. I drop the sweet corn seeds or kernels onto the compost, lightly water it and cover them up, and within a few days they start to sprout or chit. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little one there with a little chit on it. There's another one there with a little chit on it, and another one just here. Now that tells me that the seed is good or viable, because in the past I have planted the seed straight into a pot and nothing's happened. So I like to check that the seed is viable before I plant it on into a little pot. And I'll show you the pots that I use. What I like to use are these. And these are pots that a coffee came in. An expensive coffee, as they always are. And what I've done, just drilled a little drainage hole in the bottom. And I like them because they're kind of like a root trainer. Kind of. In so much as they're quite deep. So once I pop the sweet corn in and it starts to grow and the roots go down, they've got quite a way to get down to the bottom, and I find that stops them from ending up wrapped round the bottom of smaller pots, just making the plant struggle a little bit. So again, I like to recycle stuff and reuse stuff. This is something that I use, as well as the food container to pre-chit the seeds in. So all I do is I fill this with some compost, just a general purpose compost, pop the seed in about 1 inch deep, cover it over, job done. Let me show you how I do it. Now, sowing the seeds, very simple process, as most seed sowing is. Simply take your cup, your pot, your toilet roll, fill it with some compost. Compost I'm using is just a general purpose compost. As ever, I've riddled it and it's It's a nice compost, as you can see. Simply fill the container. Like that. It's about 1.5 inches from the top of the cup here. And I'll take one of these seeds. And I know the seed is viable because I've pre-chitted it. And there's one there. And I'll just show it to you. Oh, there we are. One moment. You can just see that he started to sprout. Can we see that? And that tells me that seed's viable. I'm not going to plant him, he's just going to sit there and rot away and do nothing. So I'll pop him in the top. I'll just rest him on the top of the compost. Top up the pot. He's now buried about 1 inch down. And I shall do that with all these seeds until they're all in these little cups. Now once they're done, they will probably start to appear in about 7 to 10 days, providing you keep them somewhere warm, because sweet corn is a warm weather plant. So keep it in your greenhouse, or keep it on a sunny window, or into a little grow house. Whatever you've got, you just need to keep it warm. Because at this time of the year, April, the weather can still be a little bit changeable, can still be pretty cold, can still be frosty overnight, and these plants will not tolerate a frost. It will kill them off straight away. Keep them warm. Now another tip for growing sweet corn is choose the right time to sow your seeds. Now in my experience, if I sow these now, which is around about mid-April, these sweet corns would have grown on and would have been producing cobs around about mid to late August. Perfect time if you're having a barbecue. Drop a couple of freshly picked cobs onto the barbecue, or drop them in some water, cover them in butter. However, sow them at the right time. And April, maybe into early May, I feel is the right time. So, you've sown your seeds, your sweet corn seed or kernel, into a pot. You don't have to use one of these. You could use a normal pot, or a very popular thing is to use toilet rolls, the innards after the papers come off. You simply fold the bottom over, fill it with compost. Similar thing to this really, except with a toilet roll. When it comes to planting it out, you plant the whole thing into the ground. Good idea, but I still prefer to do it this way. Now, once these pop through the surface and they start to grow, once they get to about 10 inches tall, it's time for them to be going outside. And you need to ensure that if you're putting them outside, you take a few days to harden them off or get them accustomed to being outside, and then ensure that the temperature of the soil is at least 10 degrees and has been for a period of time. That will give you the best results for these plants to grow on, give you the chance of that delicious sweet corn. Now, when you do plant your sweet corn plants outside, you can't plant them in a single row as we do with a lot of other vegetables. You'll need to plant them in a block. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, a visual aid is this. You'll need to plant them in close rows so they have neighbours around them, because the sweet corn is pollinated by the wind, and at the top of the plant are the male part of the plant which produces the pollen, and as the wind blows, the plants move, the pollen falls down onto the tassels, which are the female plant. And the tassels, or the little hairs that you will see on the end of a cob, when the pollen falls on, each of those tassels will produce a single sweet corn kernel on that cob. And if the pollination is poor, you'll have cobs that have half the kernels missing. So plant them in a block to get the best chance of good pollination. Now, although we rely on the wind to pollinate our sweet corn plants, if there isn't any wind, you can help the process. The process of you just tap the stem of the plant and you will see the pollen falling down and hopefully landing on the tassels and helping to pollinate the sweet corn cobs. And if you're going to do this, it's best to do it earlier in the morning because the temperatures are cooler and pollination is better with the cooler temperatures. So give them a tap, help them along with the pollination process to get bigger, juicier cobs. Now another thing to remember when you plant out your sweet corn plants, remember that they are quite a tall plant and they're very shallow rooted. So if the winds are a bit strong, it can rock the plant around, damage it, maybe even start to uproot it slightly. So try and put them in a sheltered spot where they may get some protection if it turns particularly windy, and also in a spot that gets a lot of sunshine because they will need the sunshine in order to grow well. Now, as I mentioned, they're quite shallow rooted, so they do need a lot of watering, especially once the cobs are starting to swell. So keep an eye on this, make sure you get plenty of water on, and between the rows of the blocks make sure you keep an eye on the weeding because you don't want them having to compete with the weeds to get the nutrients out of the ground. So remember, plant them in blocks, tap the stems to help with the pollination process, plant them in a sheltered spot from the wind if you can, but a sunny spot. Keep on top of the weeding between the rows and water them regularly, and you'll find that you are on the way to growing some perfect, delicious sweet corn. So I will be making a further video and we'll follow the stages of growth of this sweet corn, and I'll show you how I plant it out, in blocks, how I pollinate the plants by tapping on the stem, how I keep on top of the watering, and hopefully I'll get some great sweet corn cobs this year, and I'll show you how to get them from the plots, in the pots, and then the best way to eat them. So, thank you very much for watching the video. If you like the video, please give me a big thumbs up by hitting the like button, or subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. And as ever, from me, until next time, take care. Bye.